port was in County Antrim, Portrush. And this was Portrush when the trains arrived, the planes landed, the boats docked, the buses emptied, and the Austins closed.
Sugar in the morning, sugar in the evening, sugar at supper time. Be my little sugar and love me all the time.
Some of us had rooms in the hotels. The young, or not so young, upwardly mobile executives. As Mr. Macmillan said, we had never had it so good. Suddenly, there was affluence and a new point of view. You went up in the world and expected more service.
Sugar in the morning, sugar in the evening, sugar at supper time. Be my little sugar and love me all the time.
But most of us had beds in Miss Goodbody's guest house. It always had a grand aristocratic name. We liked it, but we took it with a pinch of sauce. After lunch, we were ready to tackle the ocean. Some of us watched the fray from afar. Others on the East Strand joined the cavalry. But the infantry rushed in and rushed out again. The tourist board did its best to encourage us. It extolled what it called Portrush's salubrity. It even praised the gales from Iceland. The clean, salt Atlantic winds, it said, are among the best of physicians. So we knew what was good for us and enjoyed it. Today there was everything, waves and a heat wave. We moved the front line to the water's edge and showed our poor opinion of the hesitant. When the afternoon lengthened, we followed the sun and camped on the West Strand until tea. The excitement made some of us dance with delight. But others tried to pour cold water on it. Tea time, the White Rocks were deserted. But this was the pearly gate to a wish, to summers that went on and on forever. A future made of sand and shifting light. In the short run, we only wanted amusement. Our mothers said, little amuses the innocent, and we were all innocent in the short run.
Oh, what you do to me, it's so new to me, what you do to me.
The shortest runs were on the wheels. For sixpence you could end up back where you started.
Never dreamed anybody could kiss that away, bring me bliss that away, what a kiss that away.
In Whitehall and Stormont, in the new Common Market, they talked about a social revolution. The world was at a turning point, picking up speed. It started to lift us out of austerity and flung us at the swinging 60s. We went over the top till our senses were spinning.
Never knew that my heart could go sing that away, ting-a-ling that away, make me sing that away, said goodbye to my troubles, they went that away.
The fair was full of swings and roundabouts, of challenges, diversions, and confusions, but we were never short of an expert to give us advice. The Americans told us how to be cats. We had to dig to stay cool and be hip. This was horse sense for cats. Cats were rocking the boat. And suddenly there was a dog in space. She raced round the world and arrived where she started.
Hot dog!
It was a weighty revolution, but it went beyond gravity.
Freight train, going so fast. Freight train, going so fast.
The trains were all the colors of a rainbow. Their destination was a rainbow's end. They were always leaving because they had nowhere to go. In 1957, the branch lines were closing. Steam was on the way out. But there was no way out. From Bundoran to Falcara, from Rostrevor to Cookstown, the only trains left in Ulster were ghost trains.
Freight train.
This was the last ticket to San Fernando and Oher. The future was motor cars, bumper to bumper. Some were called victors, and others were triumphs. We wanted winners, and we felt like Sterling Moss. For nearly a lifetime, there was nothing to buy. The past was full of pinching, making do, of utility underwear and homemade pajamas.
You got the hug in his arms, a thrill in his eyes. You just my style and you just the right size. Don't stop shoving around.
We were trained to expect little, and often got less. But almost overnight, there were pounds in our pockets. In London, there was Early with his premium bonds. Somebody somewhere invented a money machine. We were cautious, for it looked like a conjuring trick. And shopping was a new experience. Yet somehow we became addicted to it. We were trained to expect something and looked for it. But you have to be careful what you want. You might get it.
Shopping around. I'm gonna stop shopping around.
Portrush Harbour was a world apart.
Well, that'll be the day when you say goodbye. That'll be the day when you make me cry. You say you're gonna leave, you know what to like, 'cause that'll be the day when I die. Well,
It was for dropping in
loving and you're
and dropping out.
loving all your hugs and kisses and your money too. Well,
When you dropped in, it was a haven, a playground. Beyond the bar, there were the tides that ran from Greenland and America. But here there was a sheltered pool, a cozy nook on the Atlantic. In the harbour, the ocean was cut down to size. Point of departure, a springboard for adventures and migrations. Beyond the bar, there was Manhattan. The harbour faced in two directions. In spite of the busyness and the bustle, it managed to keep itself to itself. And the fishermen stood for hours without speaking.
That'll be the day.
The harbour was a place for loners and drifters. When people left, there was a creak of oars, a sad sound like lamenting bagpipes. The lifeboat was exciting, but it frightened us too. Even in the drills, there was a kind of menace, a warning that the tide could turn against us. These men knew what the channel was like in a gale.
Don't you rock me, Daddy-o, don't you rock me, Daddy-o.
We all grew up with Long John Silver, so every island was a treasure island. The Skerries were only rocks in the bay, but ships had anchored there in Silver's time before the harbour was constructed.
Heck up on, sing away, lady, sing away fast. You gotta have the notion and down and tall. Sing away, lady, sing away.
We were short of a wooden leg and a parrot, but at least we had the moorhead and the gulls.
Daddy-o, don't you rock me, Daddy-o.
The swell went up and down between the crags. The islands had nothing on them but lime. But under us were wrecks and bones and long weeds waving over Spanish gold.
Sing away, lady, sing away. Sing away, lady, sing
You had to keep quiet about it, of course. Treasure was no use unless it was secret.
you rock me, Daddy-o.
On the way back, you said nothing and smiled.
Ride me, my brother was coming into town. Sing away, lady, sing away. Ride, Billy, go lean the hound. Sing
But somehow, everything was changed. The cafe on the pier was shifted. Sea pearls and knickerbocker glories, fragments of a holiday, pieces of 8. Biggles, of course, would have laughed at the danger. But Biggles was in the Belvedere having tea. We did our best to be a credit to him. The flight was the high point of our holiday. From here, we could machine gun Hitler and rake the Chancellery from end to end. The whole peninsula was at our mercy. Portrush, it is a pretty place, surrounded by the sea. If it were cut from strand to strand, an island it would be. In our heads, we could hear the Dam Busters theme. We practiced with a stick or two in the harbor. The flak was thickest at Vermore, but we banked and came in low on Arcadia. He met us on the runway and he said, "Good, sir. If you were tired of Portrush, you could take a tour by coach." A coach was a bus with ideas beyond its station. How far beyond depended on the fare. Today we headed east to Ballantoy. Yesterday we went the same way, but differently. From 1883 to 1949, we traveled on the Giant's Causeway tram. The tram was the first of its kind in the kingdom, a triumph of Victorian technology.
Sweet, sweet, the memories you gave to me.
In the end, it had nowhere to go, like the trains. So the buses took over and tried to be coaches. In a roundabout way, we kept up with the times. Today, we kept up with the Middle Ages.
One girl, one boy, some dream, some joy. Memories are made of this.
Dunluce was created by the Normans and Scots. In a sense, it was the first building for tourists. Like other hotels, it had problems with service. One day, half the kitchen fell into the sea. A far cry from the New York Hilton.
Your lips and mine, two sips of wine. Memories are made of this.
We thought the Causeway was worth seeing. We even thought it was worth going to see. Some of us, after all, had crossed the Atlantic.
Little kids for the playground. Stir carefully through the day.
There was still a house house here with a fire in the parlor. And near it were wooden shops selling souvenirs. A thoughtful giant had signed the wishing chair. Magic.
The memories you gave me. One man, one wife, one love, through life.
At the house there were wishing chairs made of soapstone, authentic causeway tableware, and shelves. Wishing Well invited us to prayer, and beside it, a lady sold genuine water. When the world was moulded, said Thackeray, this must have been the bit left over. These houses were in Ballantoy. We used to have our tea beside the hearth, with farls from the griddle, loaves from the pot, and butter melting on the scones. The honey was a holiday in itself. It smacked of boldness and adventure, for the bees brought the nectar from flowers on the cliffs. The combs were full of far-fetched wildness. The waves were gentler here and warmer. Like homemade honey, they had caught the sun. We might have settled down at Ballantoy, but the point of a tour was to keep on the move. And if you wanted movement, you went to Carrick-a-Reed. The bridge did not exist to take you somewhere. It existed only to be itself. The bridge was a parable for the holiday. Its purpose was to keep us in suspense. This was a church outing from Belfast, a day trip to the Promised Land. In this heaven, you could wear silly hats and let your hair down with the neighbors. God, said the good book, hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. We were here to enjoy ourselves and enjoy one another, and ready to do a turn for the camera. Behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh. And the sons of Benjamin did so, and took them wives of them that danced, whom they caught. In 1957, the Blue Pool was famous. You could sit at the cafe and watch, or show off.
If you knew Peggy Sue, then you know why I feel blue without Peggy. My Peggy Sue. Oh, well, I love you, gal.
The boards were very high and mighty. The pool was very deep and clear.
Peggy Sue. Oh, how my heart yearns for you, oh, Peggy. My Peggy Sue. Oh, well, I love you, gal, yes, I love you, Peggy Sue.
So here were swimmers into cleanness leaping, exposing themselves to admiration and danger. We were all innocent in the short run. The pool was strictly for refreshment. In 1957, we were only making free.
Peggy Sue, pretty, Peggy Sue, oh Peggy, my Peggy Sue. Oh, well, I love you, gal, and I want you, Peggy Sue.
was in County Antrim, Portrush. And this was